Hey, what's up and welcome. In this video, I am going to show you a stupidly simple solution and later show you how this stupidly simple solution can help you get a job or save your existing job. We've got a function and this function's single responsibility is to receive any data type from test. Test is a function that returns a string. That string is a string from test. And here we are calling this function receive any type from test, and we are passing anything that test return. Here as a parameter, we are receiving anything that comes from test. So let's say 5 years later, another developer comes and change this number. Why will that developer do that? Because the single responsibility of this function is to receive any data type from test. So if this developer changes string to a number, he's not wrong. He has got all the rights to. But we are having a problem. Typescript is telling us that we have declared that this data type that will come from test is going to be a string, meaning that it only wants us to pass a string, meaning we don't have a choice but to always keep this as a string. And that is a problem because the single responsibility of this function is to receive any type. What is the solution? The solution is to make this type dynamic, not as a string. So it needs to change according to the written type of test so that here we cannot get an error. What is the solution? The solution is to use written type and then you pass the type of test. So this type of test is telling us that we will always take this type. What if we can change this to a string? As you can see that it doesn't complain. How this simple solution can help you save your job or at least get a job or make you a better developer. In coding, we are always fetching data. We are always fetching data from the server. Okay, we are always fetching data from the server. As you know that when you are fetching data from the server, you don't really know what type of data which you are going to receive. In some cases, you might know that you are going to receive a certain object. Let's say an object that has got a string name. Okay, but if you are having a dynamic or a reusable, okay, if you are having a reusable fetch function, which means that if it's reusable, it means that it's being used to fetch a variety of data. It might be a list of employees, it might be a list of movies, it might be a list of cars. As you can see, these types of data that are being returned, they are having different types of structures. So the first one has got a structure 2 and the other one has got a structure 10, maybe because of the type of fields that is have, and the other one has got a structure of 13. This just means that this might be employees, this might be cars, and this might be people. So you don't know beforehand the type of data that you are going to get because this function it's highly reusable and the company doesn't want to change it. We don't want to change this function to only fetch the data for cars, employees, or people. That means we are going to have more than one function. We are going to have 3 functions. That is a problem. So we will keep this function. So we want you as a developer to solve this problem. So this is how you can solve this problem. We can change this to a fetch function. This fetch function will always return a different data type, okay, because it's going to call the API and then from then it will return the data type. Okay, so it means that now we don't have to mind much about the data. Okay, it will mean that we don't have to mind much about the data that this function, after fetching, it will return, because if it return a data type of an object of employees, that means we are not going to have a problem. But what if maybe what we are fetching from the API, it's a list of number plates or a list of cars, an array of numbers? As you can see that we don't get an error, simply because, as you can see here, now this type, test data type, it's a type of numbers. What if we can return a string? Okay, as you can see, now it's a string. So that's about it, guys. This is so much important, and also it's adding value in what I'm doing. If you want to know what I'm doing, I'm creating a WhatsApp clone, a React Native WhatsApp clone. If you might want to see when I'm releasing it, please don't forget to subscribe. Let me just give you an idea of how I am going to use this information in this WhatsApp clone. This is what I'm trying to do. Obviously, this is the work in progress, but I'm just giving you an idea of what I'm working on and the challenges that I'm facing. I am creating a high order component with CRUD or with CRUD. This means that this high order component will receive an original component, let's say a page for saving data. That page for saving data doesn't have props for creating, updating, and deleting. Creating, updating, and deleting. It doesn't have those functionalities. So what this higher order component with CRUD does, it injects those functionalities in form of this variable. Okay, so this means that if I've got a page for registering the user, I can always pass it in this high order component so that it can gain the functionalities. What are those functionalities? Let me just give you an idea. Okay, let me just give you an idea of those functionalities, which somewhere here, just a moment. Let's check here. As you can see, this is a functionality to create. Okay, this is a functionality to create a user. Okay, it's a functionality to create, delete, read, or update. The amazing thing about this solution is that I can take any general page which by default it doesn't have the features to save, update, and delete anything. Why it doesn't have those features? Because its primary responsibility is to display or present data. It doesn't really have to take care of how to create, update, and delete data. We are sticking to the single responsibility principle. So I'm using this high order component. So this is like a function that consumes the original page and some sort of give it its superpowers. It just inject this object, and this object will make it possible for that page to be able to create, read, and update. So how can this be applied in real life? This means that I might have a page for adding users. I might have a page for updating users. I might have a page for creating users. Remember, this is not only users. It might be users, it might be contacts, it might be employees, it might be statuses. I don't care what type of data it is, but I can take any page and push it inside this high order component. And what will happen? Boom, that page will have these features. What if we've got million pages which are doing different things in this app? It will mean that if I want to change how they create, update, and delete data, I can only come to this high order component and make changes there. Guys, this doesn't end there. The YouTube coders or the YouTube tutorials, these are the things that they don't teach. They just teach React or Next.js or JavaScript in a very simple and easy to use ways. We always create clones, WhatsApp clone, Netflix clones, but when you look at the code base, you don't feel like it's similar to what Meta or Facebook team or Facebook engineers have wrote. So this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to type or write a code that is production level. Okay, so this doesn't end here. Okay, the interesting thing about this a high order component is that it cares less about the engine that does this function: create, read, and update. Its own single responsibility is becoming a high order component, and what it does, it pushes the operations create, update, and delete to pages. So what if maybe we were fetching data from a GraphQL endpoint or server, and then now the team has to change because we have decided to go back to maybe an SQL server or a different type of a server. Maybe sometimes we might want to get that data from the smartphone. Okay, this high order component doesn't care and doesn't know where the data is coming from. So it means that when that time comes where we are changing the servers or the source of data, it will mean that we won't modify this code. Okay, we won't modify this code. This code will remain the same, but what we can do, we can only change the source of data. As you can see here, I have written a comment: implement your GraphQL queries and mutations inside a high graph operation. As you can see that this, I'm using a high graph mutation. What if maybe I've decided to create my own fetch, okay, function so that I can fetch my own data from a different server? That is simple. I can just inject that module here. Okay, that module that will be fetching data, I can just inject it here. Okay, it means that this module doesn't really know how to fetch data. It's not its own responsibility. This makes this code highly reusable and highly maintainable, because if we have a problem with fetching data, we don't fiddle with this code, because we know this code, it's only receiving this as a dependency. It's depending upon it, but it knows nothing about how this data it's being created or how to fetch data. So this just means that I can have a different fetch data here. I can fetch data from the phone's memory, and also I can fetch data from the high graph. I'm Matthew Msengati, the designer and developer. If you might want to see this in real life, I am creating this series. It's going to be informational, effective, and it's also going to be a varsity level stuff. We are not going to just create beautiful user interfaces which are having a problem when another developer, the back-end developer, wants to integrate these UIs into a real world application. I'm Matthew Msengati, designer and developer. Please don't forget to help me reach 1 million in 1 month. See you on the next one.